My name is Josephine Bennett. I'm 28 years old, and the day that was supposed to be the happiest of my life shattered every illusion I had about love, family, and where I truly belonged. It happened in the middle of my own wedding reception in a luxurious ballroom in suburban Ohio. 200 guests were waiting, the string quartet was playing softly, and the scent of fresh lilies and expensive champagne filled the air. But I stood frozen in a side hallway, still in my ivory lace wedding gown, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My hands trembled as I clutched the edge of a marble pillar, the cool stone grounding me while my world spun out of control. What I discovered that afternoon changed everything. What my fiancé said behind closed doors, what his mother orchestrated with cold precision, and the choice I made in that moment, a choice that would ripple through two families and force me to rebuild my entire life, is the story I'm about to share with you. Before we dive in, if this kind of raw, emotional revenge story hits home, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It helps more than you know. And drop your city in the comments. I love knowing who's watching from across the country. Let's get into it. Let me take you back to the morning of my wedding day. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Riverton, Ohio, a small town of about 9,000 people where everyone knows everyone. My childhood home was a modest three-bedroom ranch on Elm Street. The kind of house with creaky wooden floors, a backyard big enough for summer barbecues, and a front porch swing that my mother, Eleanor, loved to sit on with a cup of tea after a long day. My dad, Thomas Bennett, was a hard-working electrician. For 32 years, he climbed ladders, wired houses, and fixed breaker panels in all kinds of weather. His hands were calloused and scarred from years of handling wires and tools, but those same hands built the treehouse in our backyard when I was 8 and taught me how to change a tire when I turned 16. He never missed a single one of my school events, even if it meant working overtime the night before. Mom worked as a teacher's aide at Riverton Elementary. She spent her days helping little kids with reading groups, wiping away tears, and making sure no child ever felt invisible. She had a gift for remembering every student's favorite color, or what snack they liked on tough days. We weren't rich, far from it. I wore hand-me-down clothes, and my winter boots were often patched. But our dinner table was always warm with homemade lasagna or pot roast, and laughter filled the house every evening. I worked hard to become a registered nurse at the local community health center. I paid my own way through nursing school with scholarships, late-night study sessions, and sheer determination. By 27, I had my own apartment, a reliable car, and a career I loved, helping patients who reminded me of the families I grew up with. Then I met Alexander Caldwell. It was a rainy afternoon in October, 2 years earlier. Alexander's father had come into the clinic for a checkup, and Alexander had driven him. He was tall, polished, with perfectly styled dark hair and a smile that seemed effortless. He leaned against the counter in a tailored coat, exuding confidence that felt worlds away from my quiet life. We started dating soon after. Dinners at upscale restaurants in Columbus, weekend getaways, flowers delivered to the clinic. Alexander came from old money. His family owned several successful construction and development companies. Their sprawling estate had manicured lawns, a private pool, and a name that opened doors in local business circles. His mother, Victoria Caldwell, was the social queen, always chairing charity events and hosting elegant fundraisers in designer gowns and statement jewelry. At first, I was swept up in the glamour. Alexander was attentive, romantic, and made me feel special. He told me he admired my parents' values and couldn't wait to blend our families. When he proposed after 18 months, in a candlelit private dining room with a stunning diamond ring, I said yes, without hesitation. I believed we could build something real. But the wedding planning revealed cracks I had ignored. Victoria took control of almost everything. The venue became the exclusive Oakwood Estate Ballroom instead of the small chapel my parents had suggested. The menu shifted to 5-course gourmet dishes. When my mom gently offered to contribute her famous apple pie recipe for dessert, Victoria smiled thinly and said, "That's charming, Eleanor, but we're going for a more refined experience." I told myself it was just wedding stress. Alexander always reassured me, "Let Mom handle the details, Josie. After the wedding, it'll be our life." I convinced myself the small compromises didn't matter. I was fighting for the long game. The marriage, the future, the family we would create. I was wrong. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my childhood bedroom. Sunlight filtered through the handmade curtains Mom had sewn years ago. My dress, a simple but elegant ivory lace gown I had saved for months to buy, hung on the closet door. It was the one thing I had insisted on choosing myself. By mid-morning, we were at the Oakwood estate. The ballroom looked breathtaking, crystal chandeliers sparkling, tables dressed in crisp white linens with gold accents, fresh floral arrangements everywhere. The air smelled of roses and vanilla candles. 200 guests were expected, half from Alexander's polished social circle, half from my world of nurses, neighbors, and extended family who drove in from nearby towns. During the ceremony, everything felt like a dream. I walked down the aisle on Dad's arm. He looked so proud in his rented suit, his rough hands gently holding mine. Alexander waited at the altar, looking handsome in his tuxedo. But after the I-do's, when guests moved to cocktail hour, I slipped into the reception hall to check the seating one last time. A nurse's habit, double-checking details. That's when my stomach dropped. Table 1, the head table right in front of the stage and dance floor, was supposed to hold both sets of parents, my aunt and Alexander's grandmother. That's where my mom and dad belonged, front and center on their only daughter's wedding day. Instead, every single place card at that table had a Caldwell name on it. Victoria's brother, her sister-in-law, business partners, country club friends. 9 people from Alexander's world. No Bennett names anywhere near it. My heart started racing. I moved quickly from table to table, scanning the elegant gold-lettered cards. My parents were at table 15, the very last one, shoved against the back wall right beside the loud swinging kitchen doors. I could already hear the clatter of pans and the hiss of the dishwashers from inside. Their chairs were cheap padded folding ones that didn't match the beautiful mahogany seats everywhere else. A rolling service cart with used glasses sat just 2 feet away, and a large trash bin with a foot pedal was practically touching the edge of a tablecloth. The overhead light above them was a dull fluorescent utility fixture, while the rest of the room glowed with soft crystal chandeliers. It felt intentional. Cool. I stood there in my wedding dress, the lace suddenly feeling too tight against my ribs, and a wave of nausea hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message. I found the wedding coordinator, a sharp woman named Diane who worked closely with Victoria, near the bar. "Who changed the seating?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mrs. Caldwell made some final adjustments this morning," she replied smoothly. "She said the bride was fine with it." I had never been fine with it. I had never even seen the new chart. Alone in that glittering ballroom, the reality crashed over me like ice water. If I let this go, my parents, the 2 people who had sacrificed everything for me, would spend the entire evening next to clanging pots and garbage while Alexander's elite circle sat in the spotlight. They wouldn't complain. Dad would smile and say it was fine. Mom would quietly smooth her dress and pretend not to notice the stares. But Victoria would know she could treat them like background noise forever. I thought about Dad's hands, strong, scarred, the knuckles permanently rough from decades of electrical work in freezing attics and damp basements. He once worked through a snowstorm to make sure our heat stayed on when I was little. I thought about Mom's dress, a beautiful deep emerald green she had carefully altered herself over 2 weekends, adding delicate beading by hand because she wanted to look perfect for my big day. These were the people who raised me on love, not money, who taught me that dignity matters more than appearances. And someone had decided they belonged next to the trash. I went looking for Alexander. I still believed he would fix it, that the man who brought me soup when I was sick and promised to love my family would be furious on my behalf. I found him in the groom's suite, adjusting his cufflinks in front of a tall mirror. The room smelled of expensive cologne and fresh flowers. "Alex, they moved my parents to the last table by the kitchen," I said, voice shaking, next to the trash cans. He didn't even turn around right away. "Mom rearranged a few things. It's not a huge deal, Josie. We have 200 guests." "Not a huge deal? They don't have proper seats. They're in folding chairs by the service door." He finally looked at me, his expression patient, almost tired, like I was the one being unreasonable on our wedding day. Baby, the Harringtons and the Langfords are at the head table. They're important for Dad's business. Let's not make this awkward right now. Important. The word landed like a slap. More important than my parents. I searched his face for shock or anger. There was none. He had known. He had known all morning and still put on his tuxedo like everything was perfect. That moment cracked something deep inside me. But the worst was still coming. I left without another word and headed back down the hallway. That's when I heard the voices through the slightly open door of the groom's suite, Victoria and Alexander. I stopped, hidden just outside, my pulse thundering in my ears. Victoria's voice was low and cutting. Look at her father in that cheap suit. And her mother, did she actually sew that dress? They look completely out of place. I will not have them at the front table with our guests. People will talk. Alexander's reply came, without hesitation. You're right, Mom. The Bennetts belong in the back. It's more appropriate. Appropriate. My own fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry in less than an hour, agreed that my hard-working, loving parents didn't belong. That they were embarrassing. The hallway seemed to tilt. I pressed my palm against the cool wall to steady myself. In that single moment, every future Thanksgiving, every holiday, every family gathering flashed before my eyes, and I saw my parents always pushed to the edges, always made to feel small. Something inside me went completely still. The noise, the fear, the love I thought I had, it all crystallized into crystal-clear certainty. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Victoria turned first, her perfectly made-up face freezing for a split second before that fake warm smile slid back into place. Josephine, darling, you look absolutely radiant. I heard everything, I said quietly. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. Heard what, sweetheart? You're emotional. It's your wedding day. I looked straight at Alexander. My voice was calm, but steel-edged. I heard you say my parents belong in the back. That it's more appropriate. I heard your mother call my father's suit cheap and say my mother sewed her own dress like it was something shameful. I heard you agree with her. The silence in the room was suffocating. Alexander stepped toward me, his face arranged in that practiced, soothing expression he used when he wanted to smooth things over. Josie, you're blowing this way out of proportion. Mom just wants everything to look perfect for the photos. The Harringtons and Langfords are key to the new development project. It's business. Business. My chest tightened. This is our wedding. My parents paid $12,000 toward this reception, money they saved for 15 years. Dad worked extra shifts. Mom skipped buying new clothes for herself. And you put them next to the trash so your business friends don't have to look at them? Victoria placed a hand on her son's arm, her diamond rings catching the light. Josephine, darling, you have to understand how these things work in our circle. Appearances matter. Your parents are lovely people, but they're simple. They don't fit at the head table. Surely you can see that. Simple. The word burned like acid. I thought of my father's quiet pride every time he paid a bill on time. My mother's gentle hands helping children who came to school with empty stomachs. These simple people had given me everything. I looked at Alexander one last time, searching for any sign of the man who once said my family was beautiful. There was nothing, just discomfort and calculation. That was the exact moment the love I thought I felt died. I turned and walked out. My heels echoed down the long hallway like a heartbeat. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something colder and stronger took over, clarity. My best friend and maid of honor, Sophia, was waiting near the bridesmaid's room. One look at my face and she knew. What happened? She whispered. I told her everything. The table, the overheard conversation, Alexander's words. Every painful detail. Sophia listened without interrupting, her expression hardening. When I finished, she said, So, what do you want to do, Josie? I can't marry him. I can't sign that license. She nodded. Good. Because you haven't signed it yet. The officiant did the ceremony, but the legal marriage license is still in Diane's folder. It was supposed to be signed at the sweetheart table during dessert. Until you sign it in front of witnesses, you're not legally married. That truth hit me like fresh air. All the vows, the rings, the kiss, they were theater until that paper was signed. I need time to think, I whispered. Take the time you need, Sophia said, squeezing my arm. I'm right here. Whatever you decide, I've got your back. I walked to table 15. My parents were already seated. Dad sat straight, his rented suit jacket buttoned, trying to look dignified even as the kitchen door banged open behind him, sending out waves of hot steam and the clatter of dishes. Mom was quietly trying to fix a loose thread on her sleeve, her face flushed with embarrassment. The moment they saw me, their eyes lit up with love. Sweetheart, you should be at the front, Mom said softly. I sat down between them in my wedding dress. My family is here, so this is where I belong. Dad studied my face for a long moment. He knew me better than anyone. Josie, what's going on? I took their hands. I heard what they said about you. I'm not doing this. I'm not marrying into a family that treats you like this. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Don't ruin your future for us, baby. This isn't ruining my future, I said, voice breaking for the first time. This is saving it. I deserve better. You deserve better. The reception was starting. Guests were being seated. The MC announced the Caldwell family at the head table. Applause. No mention of the Bennetts. I watched Victoria glide past our table, champagne in hand, whispering to her friend loud enough for us to hear. Bless her heart. Some people just don't know how to dress for these occasions. Mom looked down at her lap. Dad squeezed her hand tighter. That was it. The final straw. I stood up. Sophia caught my eye from across the room and gave me a small, encouraging nod. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst through my chest, but my steps were steady as I walked toward the stage. Every head turned. The room grew quieter with each click of my heels on the polished floor. The string quartet faltered. I took the microphone from the surprised MC. 200 faces stared at me. Victoria's smile froze. Alexander looked stunned. My voice came out clear and strong. Years of working in the ER giving me the strength to stay composed. Thank you all for coming today. I know you're here to celebrate a wedding, but I need to be honest about what's really happening in this room. The silence was absolute. Most of you know me as Alexander Caldwell's fiancée. But first and always, I am the daughter of Thomas and Eleanor Bennett. I pointed to the back. My parents are sitting at table 15, the last table, right next to the kitchen doors and the trash. Look at them, please. Every head turned. Gasps rippled through the room as people saw the folding chairs, the service cart, the trash bin. 12 hours ago, they were supposed to be at table 1. This morning, Victoria Caldwell changed it. When I confronted my fiancé, he told me his mother's business associates were more important. I heard him say my parents belong in the back. The words poured out of me, steady and unflinching. My parents paid $12,000 toward this reception. Every plate of food you're eating tonight, every glass of wine, every flower arrangement. They saved that money over 15 years from an electrician's paycheck and a teacher's aide salary. And Victoria Caldwell decided they belonged next to the garbage. Gasps and murmurs swept across the ballroom like a wave. I saw faces change, shock, discomfort, even anger on some of my side of the room. At table 1, Victoria's perfectly composed mask cracked. Her hand tightened around her champagne flute until her knuckles turned white. Alexander rose halfway out of his chair, face flushed red. Josie, stop. You're twisting everything, he called out, voice strained. I looked directly at him. You had every chance to stand up for me and my family. Instead, you chose silence. You chose comfort. You agreed when your mother said my parents don't belong here. I will not build a life, a marriage, or a future on that kind of disrespect. My voice grew stronger. I came here today believing in love and respect. But I refuse to sign my name to a marriage where my family is treated as an embarrassment. I will not raise children who learn that love means being ashamed of where you come from. I reached up and unpinned my veil with steady hands. The delicate lace folded neatly in my lap, just like Mom had taught me, with care, even in goodbye. I placed it gently on the edge of a stage. To my friends and family from Riverton who drove hours to be here today, thank you. We're going home. To the Caldwells, I genuinely wish you well, but I deserve a man who chooses me and my family without hesitation. My parents deserve to sit at table 1, not table 15. I set the microphone down carefully and stepped off the stage. The room was deathly silent except for the clicking of my heels. No one spoke. 200 people watched in stunned silence as I walked straight to table 15. Dad stood first, his eyes shining with quiet pride. Mom had tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling, a real, beautiful smile. I hugged them both tightly right there between the folding chairs and the kitchen door, breathing in the familiar scent of Dad's aftershave and Mom's lavender lotion. Sophia appeared beside us with my coat and bag. She had already arranged a car. The four of us walked out together, past the silent string quartet, past the untouched 5-course meal, past the glittering chandeliers. Behind us, I heard Victoria's shrill voice cut through the quiet. She's completely lost her mind, and Alexander desperately calling my name. We didn't look back. That night, back in my childhood kitchen with the same chipped Formica table and humming refrigerator, the reality settled in. Sophia called to confirm. The marriage license had never been signed. Legally, I had never been married to Alexander Caldwell. No annulment, no divorce, just freedom. I blocked every number from the Caldwells that night. 2 weeks later, the morning sickness started. Violent waves that left me shaking on the cold bathroom floor. I bought 3 tests from the local pharmacy. All positive. I sat on the edge of my old bed, staring at those 2 pink lines, feeling a storm of emotions: fear, love, determination. This baby was mine. I would protect her with everything I had. Telling Alexander was necessary, but painful. I sent a short, professional email drafted with Sophia's help. I was pregnant. I was keeping the baby. All future communication would go through lawyers. His responses came fast, first pleading, then threatening, then angry. Victoria even tried calling the house. Dad answered calmly, "Talk to our lawyer," and hung up. The custody battle loomed, but I had something stronger than their money: a supportive family, a stable job, and unbreakable boundaries. The months that followed tested every piece of strength I had left. Pregnancy was hard. I worked reduced hours at the community health center while battling exhaustion, swollen feet, and the constant fear of doing this alone. But I was never truly alone. Mom sat with me through every ultrasound, holding my hand when the technician asked if Dad was joining us. Dad turned the tiny second bedroom into a nursery, building a crib from reclaimed oak and painting the walls a soft, peaceful cream. He added a hand-carved wooden mobile with little birds, a symbol, he said quietly, of freedom. Emma Grace Bennett was born on a crisp October morning at 6:42 a.m. She came into the world screaming with life, 7 pounds 4 ounces, with my eyes and the tiniest dimple on her left cheek. When the nurse placed her on my chest, I cried tears I had been holding for months. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming love and gratitude. This little girl would never sit at anyone's table 15. She would always know she belonged at table 1. Alexander got the news through our lawyers. He fought for visitation, but Ohio courts favored stability. He received supervised visits twice a month, with strict rules: no Victoria allowed unless I or my parents were present. She refused those terms. To this day, she has never met her granddaughter. Her pride cost her that relationship. The real revenge came quietly, without me lifting a finger. Word spread through Riverton and the surrounding communities. 200 guests had witnessed everything. Business partners pulled out of Caldwell development projects. The prestigious Oakwood Country Club board quietly asked Victoria to step down from her charity positions. Contracts dried up. Alexander's polished reputation took permanent damage. They learned the hard way that treating good people like trash has consequences that money can't always fix. 1 year later, Emma is 14 months old, walking, laughing, and throwing spoons exactly like I did as a baby. I'm back full-time at the clinic, recently promoted to senior nurse coordinator. We live in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment 3 blocks from my parents. It's small, the carpet is old, but it's filled with love, photos on every wall, and the smell of Mom's apple pies. Every Sunday at 5 p.m., we gather at my childhood home on Elm Street. The same chipped kitchen table, the same mismatched chairs. No place cards, no judgment, no hierarchy. Just fried chicken, mashed potatoes, laughter, and Emma in Grandpa's lap as he tells her stories about fixing lights for the whole neighborhood. Sophia comes often with her new boyfriend. My charge nurse Patricia brings her famous peach cobbler. The house is loud, warm, and perfectly imperfect. Last month, a letter arrived from Alexander's father, Richard. He apologized for staying silent that day. He asked if one day he might meet Emma. I haven't answered yet. Some bridges stay burned. Some stay open just a crack. Time will decide. Looking at my daughter playing on the floor surrounded by 3 generations of unconditional love, I feel something I never felt in that glittering ballroom. Complete peace. I stood up that day not just for my parents, but for myself. For every woman who has ever been made to feel that her family, her roots, her worth was negotiable. If you're watching this and you're sitting at someone's table 15 right now, whether in a marriage, a job, or a family, know this. You can stand up. You can choose dignity over diamonds. You can walk away and build something real. My name is Josephine Bennett. I'm 29 years old. I'm a proud mother, a dedicated nurse, and the daughter of Thomas and Eleanor Bennett, 2 of the finest people on this earth. I will never again let anyone put the people I love next to the trash. This is my table 1. And it's the most beautiful table in the world. If this story moved you, drop table 1 in the comments. Tell me, have you ever had to stand up for your family like this? Would you have walked away? I read every single comment. If you're new here, hit subscribe and the bell. I share real, emotional stories of strength and justice every week. Thank you for spending this time with me. You're not alone. Never forget your worth.